Hello, parents. This is Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and you're listening to the Maryland Crabs Podcast.
Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Fernay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Fernay.
And we are back. This is the Maryland Crabs. Welcome back to another fun-filled week of laughter, hilarity, and... I'm overselling this, huh?
You're drunk.
No, I wish.
Cheerful?
I wish.
Don't be cheerful. We don't do cheerful. We do sullen and complaining and cantankerous.
Yeah. Welcome back. And to the people that responded to our plea or our request for opinions on the tax situation in Annapolis, thank you very much.
The increase.
And we're going to turn around and put that all together and figure out something. And if you wanted to be on the podcast, we'll be in touch with you shortly to figure out when's a good time to do that. And we'll go forward with that.
And we'll find out what grinds your gears.
We will. And it's been a week. Did you get on the woodwind, Tim?
I meant to book it, and then I got distracted by something else on the internets.
I know. Well, it's not quite great sailing weather. It's sort of like baseball weather. It's like
naked people on the internets now.
No. Mm-hmm. Really?
Mm-hmm. I'll talk to you after this.
Do you have to pay for it?
No, but you have to check the box saying you're over 18. That's the truth.
Oh, that's sort of like going to the beer websites. Go to Budweiser.com. Are you over 18?
Do you know what I'm thinking about too? I was actually on something the other day, the CAPTCHA, it says, I am not a robot. And it's the little square. And you just click, I am not a robot. And everyone who's scared about artificial intelligence taking over the world, like kind of Skynet situation, if they can't figure out how to click a box, I think we're cool. I think we're okay.
Yeah.
That's how we're going to protect ourselves against Skynet, is just have a box that you have to click to say you're not a robot.
That's true.
It's sort of like Walking Dead. I just think if you just tied the shoelaces of all the dead people together, they'd avoid that whole thing, you know?
That's true.
Just think, people. Think outside the box. The box you have to check to prove you're not a robot.
And Tim solving the problems of the world.
I want a beer.
Hey, this week kind of cool. I talked to, and I do want to apologize to George Young from DMV Weather because we recorded this quite a bit ago, and it's not necessarily really time sensitive. So
he's going to hate you.
No, he's okay. He's okay. So it sort of got pushed back and pushed back and pushed back a little bit. And George Young in DMV Weather, this is a local weather forecaster in Cape St. Clair. And Annapolis is a really hard area to forecast.
Yeah, it really is. We're on the rain bubble right here.
And I mean, I know Justin Burke is a friend of mine all the time. He says, oh my God, you got that damn Annapolis bubble.
Yeah.
You know, we got this horrible storms coming around, but yes.
I'll talk to my mom over Bethesda or anything, and she's getting that storm, and I'll say, we didn't get any of it, Mom. And she'll say, Timmy, you don't live in Florida. I'm like, I know, but everything you guys get pushes north of us.
Whether it's the cold air from the bay that deflects it back up 95, or whether it's the warm air from the bay that sucks it down, or it's just very weird. But
unless it's a nor'easter, then we get hammered. That I know.
Well, George has a great story, and we'll get into this, but his house was hit in a major way, almost destroyed in that derecho we had several years ago.
2012.
And he's funny. He knows all the dates and everything else, but it's so unusual to have somebody that can forecast local weather. And he does the weather forecasting every day for me at the Annapolis Daily News Brief. He's got a 2-minute weather thing. And what he wants to do ultimately is hold weather people accountable, because we always make the joke. It's like, oh gosh, you can be wrong and still have your job. And yeah, it's going to snow. We're going to say 10 inches. Oh, well, we didn't get anything and everything else. And what he's looking to do, and he believes that everybody has their own little forte of what they're good at.
Right.
And so if Topper Shutt was good at rain, and Tony Pan was good at such and such, or, the creepy kid living in his grandmom's basement was great with snow amounts, to be able to have a centralized area where you could report this and actually get quantified, saying, okay, well, this guy is great with thunderstorms. This guy's great with...
So it's like real clear politics with polling. Is it you get the best of the best?
To be able to see exactly where things are. And I think that's kind of a neat idea. It's going to be a little bit hard to get off the ground because George doesn't have an ego, because, he's just sort of a guy broadcasting, if you will, via a podcast. And certainly the creepy guy living in his grandma's basement doesn't have the ego. But you've got the guys that are on television that will be like, oh, no. We've got so much that we need to protect. So I think it's
everyone loves their weatherman. I worked in TV news for years, and that was down in New Mexico. And by the way, there are few places that are as easy to work as a weatherman than New Mexico because the weather is the same all the time. It is.
What do they do? Record like a month in advance?
I know. It was like an LA story.
Here, it's Tuesday. It's going to be warm and 84 and sunny.
Yeah, it was always sunny.
Wednesday's work.
I always remember, and it was Bill Eisenhood. He recently died. He was a really nice guy, and I'd go out for dinner break because we did the 6 and the 10, and he'd be there just looking at the sky, just pondering it. I'm like, what? He goes, I can't just figure out what that front's going to do. I said, look, I have no weather training, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you nothing. It's going to be sunny. This is New Mexico. This is not London. It's pretty easy. But everyone loves their weather guy. Who's the guy on Channel 4 when I was growing up? He was
not from around here.
Oh. He was I'm trying to remember. So it was with George Michaels, and he was
George Michael. He was in Wham. I loved him.
So it was George Michaels, the sports guy, and then the weather guy was, I can't remember. He's like a god among meteorologists. All right, if you remember, text me. I can't remember, or hit us on Twitter. I can't remember the guy. Now your guy,
yeah, he's pretty accurate. I mean,
he is. But I'll tell you what, he likes him some snow. And here's the thing about meteorologists is that they like severe weather because that's when they get all excited. And stuff.
That's when the relevancy comes.
So whenever you have a front coming in, I could tell because Justin Burke's the same way.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh man, he gets so excited.
Justin's the faith in the flakes guy. I mean, he's all about the snow much more so than the summer storms. George is about any kind of severe weather. And I think you're right. All these weather forecasters these meteorologists are all like.
I mean, when we worked in news, when bad news was great, it was great for us. You get excited about anything.
Right. What is it? If it bleeds,
it leads.
If it bleeds, it leads, right.
But the weather guys, they love that sort of thing. To the point that I thought that they would get they never got cautious. They'd always be like, well, it could be, 8 to 12 feet. Or it could be nothing.
Right. Well, this last one passed early April when they had that predicted snowstorm on Sunday or whatever it was. I can't remember. I remember the Capitol Weather Gang, which is the Washington Post.
Right.
Guys, they were all over there.
8 to 12, yeah.
They were like, it could be a trace to 1 to 8 inches.
Yeah.
Take your pick, depending on where you are. And then they left them out, well.
But he's right. They should be held accountable.
In Montana.
But they should be held accountable because, 20, 30 years ago, they didn't have the tools they do now. But I don't think, it doesn't seem like the accuracy has improved any. And they might argue and say, yeah, it really has. But you have all this super duper Doppler and you have all this sort of thing that you have the tools that they didn't have in the 70s.
Well, one of the things I think
we should be controlling the weather at this point.
I think that they've got the tools. They look at them, but I think what they're doing is they're relying on them as opposed to interpreting them. And I think there's a difference there to sit there and look and say, oh, well, Doppler says it's going to rain, as opposed to looking and say, okay, well, Doppler says it's going to rain, but the wind, whatever the machine is that tells me this is coming out of this area, tells me that because I know this area, that the wind is going to push that rain away from us.
You know an app you got to get that's incredible is Dark Skies. You have that one?
I love that app.
Oh my! It was like $2.99. It was worth every penny.
Yep.
Because it's $2.99. So I mean, this is half the price of a Starbucks. But it'll tell you. Like you'll get the alert that light rain starting in 10 minutes, stopping in 25.
And it's
always spot on. Because it's super, I don't know how they do it, but it's super pinpointed. So they know exactly, because you use location services on your phone. So they know exactly where you are. And they know when it's going to start raining, stop raining, start snowing, stop snowing. But I mean, they're always dead on. So if you don't have it, just plunk down your $2.99 and get it.
Dark Sky.
Dark Skies, maybe? Dark Sky? Well, either way,
are they our new sponsor?
They should be.
They should be.
Like at the free app.
Yeah, well, instead of a free app, why don't we listen to the human app? And George Young with DMV Weather is right here.
Whether it's Main Street, your street, or any street in the county that we all live in and love and call Anne Arundel, it's a special place. But part of living here is having a bank that provides what you need when you need it. So when your plans and dreams call for a bank, turn to us, your neighbor. We're Severn Bank, supporting the community that supports us. I'm Alan Hyatt, chairman of Severn Bank, and it's our honor to be the bank that serves the people of Anne Arundel County. One thing that we never forget is that as a member of this community, it's our responsibility to be committed to helping you and our county thrive. Like you, we live here, we work here, and we play here. Severn Bank, we're here with you.
Online at severnbank.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Severn Bank is a trade name used by Severn Savings Bank.
Hi, this is Randy.
And Claudia Boldiga.
Please join us and our presenting sponsor, RXNT, on Saturday, April 28th on AAMC's South Campus for Denim and Diamonds Bash. Proceeds will benefit mental health and addiction services in our community. Now more than ever, we need to focus on this critical need.
The bash sold out last year, so don't delay and join us for this fabulous night under the stars. Can't make the party? You can still help by purchasing a raffle ticket.
This year's raffle is a stunning 4-piece amethyst jewelry collection donated by Cezanne Jewelers, valued at $5,000. Only 100 tickets will be sold for the raffle, so don't miss out. For event or raffle tickets, go to aamcdenimanddiamonds.org.
Thanks for your support of Anne Arundel Medical Center's efforts to improve the availability of mental health and addiction services throughout our community.
Remember, it's not just a party, it's a party with a purpose.
We are here with George Young, who, if you are a fan of the Annapolis Daily News Brief, you hear him 5 days a week. He is the brains behind DMV Weather, which is our local weather forecaster, which is a tough thing to do in Annapolis, isn't it?
It has its challenges, right? Like everywhere, but a little more here.
It really does. I know Justin Burke, and he's always, we go back and forth a little bit, and he always says Annapolis has this little bubble of weather. And it's very difficult, really to forecast what's going to do. And I guess it's probably because of a convergence of the land, the cold from the land and the warmth of the water from the bay, and the ocean is not that far away.
That's it. Yeah, so that's it. And it goes both ways, right? Sometimes the bay is warmer, and obviously in the warmer months, and we get a different effect. And we see in the wintertime where the water's still in the upper 40s. And the temps got into the 80s, and that's a huge discrepancy. And so the temperature here measured in Annapolis by the National Weather Service is right off the Severn River, just at the corner where it meets the bay. And if the wind comes from the southeast or the east and picks up that water temperature, it'll carry it right to their measuring station, and you'll see drastic changes in short periods of time. So
you've been forecasting weather for a while. And I know that you've thrown a thing on your Facebook page. I'll throw a plug out to the Facebook page if you want to go check out DMV Weather on how you got into it.
Yeah.
Why don't you just recount that a little bit?
Yeah, everyone kind of has whatever their profession or passion is, has a story that got them into it. It seems to be a little more prevalent for weather forecasters or anyone with a love of the weather. And so it goes back to we just passed the anniversary of the President's Day blizzard around here, known as PD1, or the first President's Day blizzard, was 1979, and that was a storm that was forecast to really miss to the south of the Annapolis, D.C., Baltimore region. And
did that get all up and down the East Coast?
It was a fair amount of the East Coast. There was one in 78 that was a huge one in the Northeast. This one in 79 was a fair amount of the East Coast, and it was forecast the night before to miss south and not be a big deal. So, and maybe a few inches, right? It kind of shown a little bit, but everyone went to bed, and this was obviously pre all information sources in real time. So if your newspaper or 11 o'clock news didn't capture it, then you went to bed thinking you were good. And so as a kid, at the time 6, not that I was really watching the news, but there was no real talk in the household of, hey, big storm coming. And so we all went to bed, and when we woke up, literally there were 20 inches of snow on the ground and huge drifts. And
That's magical.
It was magical. It was transformational in a lot of ways. It was really cool. And that, we have these events that kind of really leave an imprint on your brain and stick with you. And that was one. And it was so unexpected that no road crews had been out, something, that we experience a lot here in the region, right? And it's just a timing thing. But they were caught off guard. And so you had 2 feet of snow with drifts of several feet. It was wild. And it took days for them to clear it. I lived in South Bowie at the time. And we were off school for the week, and they had to bring in special equipment, and just the whole process.
That's my kind of snowstorm. That's the ones I want. I don't want these little 1-2 inch stuff that turns gray by the afternoon. I want something that dumps on us and shuts us down for a couple days.
So that was the one that kind of just shifted me into, okay, this is magical. And really from there, I had this plan of I'm going to become a meteorologist and forecast the weather, and it never really wavered. And just every weather event from that point forward was the same kind of magical quality, and I could just recite them. I mean, there was the 82 snowstorm that was not a huge snowstorm, but was predicted to be a big rainstorm, and that caused the Air Florida Flight 90 crash into the 14th Street Bridge in D.C. And then there were the blizzards in 83 and 87, and then the snowstorm, the Veterans Day snowstorm in 1987, another wildly unpredicted thing that, might have been rain showers or snow showers in the morning. And it just blew up. I mean, things happen sometimes, and we ended up with 16 inches of snow by 6 o'clock that night for something that started in the morning. And it was just this series of magical things that just kept reminding me, you can predict all you want, but this weather thing is pretty cool, so look into it. And so
it's funny to see your passion for it, because you're rattling off these dates like off the back of your hand, and it's like, oh yeah, well, the 78 storm, and I have never been one like that. My mother was like that. She was like, oh, I remember when Agnes came, and and that hurricane hit in such and such a year, and it's just something that doesn't really affect me. I certainly know I love a good storm, and I know roughly about when the time. I remember my senior year in high school was a big one up in Connecticut, and we had just giant snow drifts, that's why I asked about that 1978 storm. We haven't seen much here.
We haven't seen much, and the forecast was for it to be pretty much a normal to slightly below normal. That was the general idea. It's
and the normal forecast for the area basically is a little bit of snow and a lot of panic, right?
A little bit of snow and a lot of panic. On average, it's maybe 12 to 15 inches per year. And look, let's face it, you get that with a lot of 1 and 2 inch systems, and then you usually have we usually get a good 3 to 5 inch, or maybe 1/6 or so. So it adds up on average, and average is such a tricky thing to even talk about, because that's 3 years of terrible snows with 1 year of 2 blizzards and a pretty good snow, and then you have this numerical thing that almost kind of misguides you along the way, thinking, oh, that was below average or above average. But the expectation based on synoptic events, it was just the warmer waters in the Pacific, and it was an El Nino or La Nina kind of thing, and whatever that translates to. It's not something you can use to pin down exact numbers, but okay, it's probably going to dictate some storm patterns that go to maybe our northwest a lot. And we've seen that, a lot of Clipper-style storms. So it generally has played out the way we expected. We forecast probably a 10 or 12-inch season this year, and it's not far off of that. Long-term forecasting is guesswork. It's what do I think it's going to be, and let's just see how it ends up, because you can put some science to it, but the science behind our numbers was statistical analysis and not meteorological components.
I imagine there's just so much that can affect it.
There's so much that can affect it. And let's face it, it takes just one small window of the right conditions to produce something that throws off the numbers one way or the other. And so one storm that just comes up from the right direction, in which there's enough cold air, we could have 10 or 15 inches of snow. It is what it is, right? And so if it all comes together and works out, then you have this large number, and your whole number could be skewed for the entire season.
A little bit of bipolar Maryland weather.
Bipolar weather just takes the one, and that's really the gist of our winter weather around here, which is why everyone's always so hopeful and cynical at the same time, because most things don't pan out, but there's always the one thing that does pan out. So here we sit on the 24th of February with a weak winter so far in terms of snowfall, and there's still time on the clock. Right?
There's still hope.
There's still March ahead, and the models show some things out there, so we watch and wait.
Well, your weather and summer can be just as challenging as well. I know I've seen in the past, and I don't remember how many years ago it is, but I'm sure you'll throw that date right out at me, when there was a bad thunderstorm, and it wasn't the derecho, which I am still convinced that meteorologists invented that word because they got caught with their pants down. And they said, okay, we don't know what the hell happened. So, it was a roll the dice. Reco,
Spanish word. Let's choose one of those.
But this thunderstorm came over and capsized one of the water taxis up in Baltimore. It came out of the west and caught everybody by surprise.
Sure did.
Certainly there were some storms recently in Annapolis that had capsized a couple of sailboats that were out there. And the Annapolis area, and I will say that, we've partnered with the Annapolis Daily News Brief pretty much since we launched in September. Your big thing is your accuracy, and we're going to get into that in a little bit, and getting I wouldn't say a competition, but you have been, you pride yourself on your accuracy. You pride yourself on knowing or admitting when you screw it up, and it's not that you screwed it up or you just called it wrong.
Sure.
But you have been eerily accurate now, going on 4, 5, 6 months.
About 6 months.
So how, with the summer, okay, we've got the storms that will come up the bay. We'll have the storms that will come in from the west. We've got, again, I imagine the two different temperatures. You've got, cooler water, warmer land.
Yeah, it has been a good winter in fall. It's been pretty accurate. It's worked out. So far so good. Now the temperatures we forecast and we measure against the actuals, and so the reality is it's way easier, I guess would be an easy way to put it, to be accurate in the summer months, because the way the earth is set up and the heating of the sun on a more predominant basis, things just don't change that much. So you're not going to get a huge fluctuation like we had earlier this week, where we went from 80s down to 40s within a couple of days. The air masses just don't change position that much. So accuracy levels go down regardless of whether it's Annapolis, which is a bipolar kind of place with things that swing by the hour, or at BWI or DC, wherever in the region. Your overall accuracy goes down just because of the movement of air masses in the fall, winter, and spring, but mainly in the fall and kind of late winter as we're now getting into spring. So, but it doesn't really drop off the table is my point. So you'll see some fluctuations in our accuracy numbers, probably about 80% on high temperatures within 4 degrees of our forecast, and then really 90 to 95% in the maybe kind of June through September time frame.
Okay.
So over the course of a year, I think our benchmark is we're shooting for 85% across all of our cities that we forecast for. In Annapolis, we've been actually pretty good. We've been 85 or 90% for the whole time that we've been doing this. So, but you're right. It's a good, insightful kind of question that you asked, John, which is the wintertime, it gets all of the attention because snow impacts people's travel and daycare.
Yeah,
in
the summer we just turn the air conditioner up a little bit.
But the reality is the more important weather events really are from the spring through the fall with thunderstorms. They're just the most dangerous. So the where it all gets lost in the shuffle is they're daily. So everyone gets tired of the same drum being beaten on a daily basis. Watch out for thunderstorms, severe weather possible. It's really the same message, but it's incredibly important because we just don't get lightning and downbursts with 60 to 80 mile. That doesn't happen in the winter. It's way more foreseeable, generally speaking. So the more important time to be accurate, if you had to kind of classify them, really is with thunderstorm season.
Well, the thunderstorms and the derecho was a big ass thunderstorm that came through here. Thunderstorms, we see them all the time in the summer. I mean, and I think how dangerous are they?
Yeah.
I mean, I know when it thunders, my dog runs and pees on the floor.
Yeah.
And that's
they all have the same potential as the general kind of premise to go by. So once a thunderstorm forms, these certain dynamics kick in, right? And so there's this rising air and then the convection occurs. And so they all have the potential. Certain situations have more potential than others, but any thunderstorm ultimately has the same potential as any other thunderstorm, which is you can have fallen trees, you can have cloud to ground lightning, you can have all kinds of issues with heavy rainfall, so flash flooding. So they're dangerous. You can't take back being struck by lightning. You can't take back when a tree falls on your house. Sometimes you get lucky and sometimes it works out, but you can't take it back. So you really just have to kind of know where they are and know where you're going to go in case they kind of come over your area. Otherwise, you just get caught in a situation that you didn't expect it.
Well, I will reiterate a lot of what the emergency preparedness people in the county and the city both say all the time, since we are somewhat leading into spring at the time that we're recording this. But, if you're ever caught into a flash flood, if you see moving water or even standing water on the road, don't ever drive through it because you don't know how deep it is, and B, you don't know how strong it is, and it doesn't take much. Believe it or not, even though you're driving a car that weighs a couple tons, it doesn't take much to sweep it off the road or wherever it may go.
That's right. So thunderstorms, so you have to watch for all of it. And so one thing we've added recently by design is a really powerful interactive radar satellite weather map tool to our website and to our app. So our website at dmvweather.com and our app is DCMDVA Weather in Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
Okay, so why is it like DCMDVA and not DMV?
Yeah, so we submitted DMV
That's pretty
Weather.
stupid.
We submitted it and it got rejected because they thought we were taking over the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Well, I said, you got my vote for taking it over. I mean, I've been there. They're right for taking over.
So Google actually allowed it. Apple said, no, you can't do it because you're going to benefit from their name recognition. Okay, so then I came back with DCMDVA Weather, and that's where it stands now.
And then you just kept the same for the apps?
So that's it for the app, right? I mean, that's and for Google too. It's just make them the same. And so ultimately, I think there's a way to circle back. If I get written approval from the Department of Motor Vehicles to use DMV, since it's DMV Weather, then I could submit that to Apple and Google, and that's my out, and then I can be approved for DMV Weather as the app name. I'm probably going to look into that in the spring and summer. I just went away from it when they rejected it initially.
Okay. So right now, if you're looking for the app, which is a very good app actually, so it's go onto the App Store in Apple or the
Apple
Google
or
Play.
Google Play, yeah, and just type in DCMDVA Weather, and it should be your top result, and download for free. And so it has daily forecasts that we post, and these are not model-generated forecasts. We don't use widgets or otherwise to generate the forecast. So in the forecast section, it's our forecast that we've written out, and put into the website. And so the website feeds the app, and it's the same information, but it's revised daily, and that's our analysis of what's going on. And so there's both a numerical kind of forecast for temperatures and also a sentence or two about each day. Hey, mixed skies, sunny and clear, watch for winds later in the day, that kind of thing.
Right.
Just to give it a little human feel, and also the numbers then speak for themselves. But also back to the radar and satellite tool, it's critical because we can update 1 million times by Facebook, Twitter, text message, email, the app, whatever. But to have a tool that is in a smartphone or tablet or website that someone can look at on their own without needing to refer to anything that we've posted is critical, because you can look at a radar and see, oh, there's this tremendous red thing just next to my town. I better watch out. So having that tool was critical for us to add to the mix, because there's no replacement for the human element in forecasting, because as forecasters, we help break things down simply and hopefully accurately. But to have that tool at your disposal 24/7, I think was a critical add for us to our mix of communication, really, of what's going on, because anyone can use it at any time. So that is a tool that we've licensed from IBM, the weather company. So it's a pro model tool. I mean, it's what the TV stations use. It's what major players in the market use. So this is no homegrown.
What's your background in the weather? I mean, obviously you had the bug. And I think we probably stepped on somebody's trademark there, but at that point. But you had the weather bug as a kid, and now here you are. I can vouch that you're not a kid.
Yeah.
And how do we get to the point where we've got DMV Weather?
Yeah. So I had the bug. Went specifically to UNC Asheville to get a degree in atmospheric sciences for a broadcast meteorology track to be on TV, and also went there to play baseball. So it was a twofold thing. So it was either Maryland, UNC Asheville, or Florida State, and I just probably wasn't going to play that much at Florida State. I played a lot where I went. It was Division I, so it was great. Checked my checklist off for that, and got the atmospheric sciences major there, and they just didn't have it at Maryland at the time. So 3 years in, though, I changed majors. So I got a minor in meteorology, but I ended up with a business degree. So the dream kind of took a back seat for a long time, until June 29th, 2012, right? When the derecho came.
Oh, was that
That was it, right?
So there he goes with the date again.
There it was with the date, and yeah, that was a good one to remember. So that was, these are forecastable events. I mean, derechos don't just pop up and move over your region. They're long track events. So this was a known thing. It was under forecasted and reported until the last several hours, which was a little bit too late at the time. Everyone was
what was the reason? And that caught everybody by surprise here. And I mean, if you say it was such a forecast long, I mean, do they expect that when it hits the mountains to break up, or when it hits 95, which is this sort of miraculous line running up and down the coast, it says, oh, nothing.
Yeah, we can't cross the interstate. They do generally expect there to be some disruption when the mountains are involved. But this was known to be a super derecho by 2 or 3 in the afternoon as it moved from Chicago through Fort Wayne, Indiana, across northern.
And that didn't hit our area till like 7, 8 at night, right?
Even later, right? It might have hit the western side of D.C. kind of 10 or 11. It hit it hit Annapolis in the 11 p.m., 12 a.m. time frame. And so, but even days in advance, you can tell when a huge high pressure center sets up over the southeastern U.S. and you have this clockwise circulating flow, there's going to be this line of storms that rides along the northern periphery of the circulation, because that hot air ultimately has a stopping point and meets cooler air even in the summertime. And so it's called the ring of fire, they call it, right? And so you have this thing. And so we were in the hundreds for days. It was a very extended stretch. We might see 100 every once in a while, but we had several days at BWI of 100 plus degrees. That day was 103 maybe. And so you knew the large scale synoptic setup was problematic. Then that morning at 10 or 11, it started in Iowa. You could see it on the radar. And if you know what to look for, this is not a magical thing. I mean, this is a weather thing. And so you could see this line form along the northern edge of this high pressure system. And it was going to ride along that circulation pattern as far as it could go. And so it then hit Chicago or went through, and then it really hit Fort Wayne, Indiana. I mean, 80, 90, 100 mile an hour winds, and it just kept going. The alarm should have been sounded at noon or 2, like, hey, watch out. And it really wasn't until probably maybe the 6 or 7 news, if that, but maybe then started to hit social media in the 7 to 8 time frame. But it was a Friday night. There was a lot going on. It was summertime. People aren't, and I see it with DMV Weather. You can post things all day long, Monday through Thursday, and the response is greater than Friday night and Saturday with kids' sport. There's just times where people tune out. Not everyone's staring at the radar all day long, right? So. But anyway, so it was forecasted coming. I knew it was coming. It's always still a wait and see because of the mountains. And so nighttime hit, and I was watching the Orioles game, wife, and we had 2 young kids at the time, and 2 and 3, and they're asleep. And so ultimately by maybe 10 or 10:30, I even kind of faded out on the couch, and the Orioles game was on, and I fell asleep, right? And as soon as it hit, and I was in Cape St. Clair, and as soon as it hit, the wind was so immediately intense, and I knew what was coming, that as soon as it hit, I heard it and woke up, went right upstairs, and then my wife was with one of our kids. And again, when you have 2 and 3-year-olds, the last thing you want to do is wake them up. It's taken you 2 to 3 years to get them to sleep, right? And so the last thing you want to do, even for a derecho, is wake them up. But I knew what the deal was. I looked outside for 2 seconds, ran right upstairs, and said, hey, this is the real deal. She's probably heard it from me a million times already at that point. This is the real deal. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. For real this time. We really need to.
So what, you had a basement?
We had a basement, and so, it was a joint decision. Hey, just take one more look. The kids are sleeping. We finally got them to sleep. Okay, I'll be right back. Let me go down and just take one more peek outside. And so I went down, in a split level house. So I'm in the front looking out the front window, and it's just going crazy outside. And part of me is just, finally, this is what I've been waiting my whole life for. Something major is about to happen. But it was super dark. And then the power had gone out as soon as I went downstairs. It was quick. And so you can't see anything. And if you've I've never been in anything before that or since then that was like that. But when it gets that dark and becomes that noisy, your equilibrium and your senses get thrown off even in your own home. And you really have no depth perception or anything. So the only way you could see was when it would flash lightning. And there was a lot of lightning. So the lightning would flash and I could see what was going on. They would go away and come back. And the last time it flashed, it was an extended flash, and I saw everything just kind of going upwards. And I knew what that meant was there was about to be a downburst. And the only thing that has me in front of this microphone today is the fact that the lightning went away, and I could no longer see what I was seeing, but I had seen enough. So as soon as the lightning stopped, I took one step away from the front window and yelled. I had no time to get upstairs. I just yelled, "Get the kids now." And as soon as I said the word now, the whole house shook. And But it again, disoriented in terms of what happened. It was so loud and dark and confusing.
And how shook for a lightning strike, thunder?
It shook for something major occurring. You know, I had no clue, so I just froze. I just stood there, and it was silent. And I had no clue. It was so dark, I didn't know what was literally right in front of me or next to me. And then I looked around, and then I could feel rain falling on me from in my family room. And I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. And so you go through this process of things don't make sense. What am I really dealing with? So dark, I can't see anything. There's no anything. Then the lightning would flash, and I can see the lightning. So I looked up, and there's no roof above me. Oh, okay. Well, there's a tree laying literally right next to me, a 36-inch diameter tree. And there's another one just to the left of my head, and it's still really quiet. And I can see kind of the street now, so there's no front of my house either. I don't really know what I'm dealing with, but I'm not moving. My brain went into fight or flight mode, and it was kind of in maybe a third option of lockdown mode, just don't move. And then I heard screaming from upstairs, oh my God, oh my God. And that literally was a snap you out of the moment.
Woke you up
and so I then launched forward, not seeing where I was going, and I had lots of trees to crawl under and over and duck, and I barely could squeeze up the steps, and ran up the steps, and there was my wife. We're divorced now, but at the time my wife was standing there with my 3-year-old, and they're just standing at the end of the hallway. And I said, well, what's going on? Knowing that they have no clue what just happened where I was.
Right.
And everything looked okay where they were. I said, what are you screaming for? And so here's another weird thing where you just have this odd conversation in the midst of chaos. And she said, well, we can't find Lainey. And I said, well, she's standing there with Josie. Lainey was in this other bedroom. What do you mean you can't find Lainey? And this is the front of the house where I was too, but the second floor. She's not in her bed. I said, well, where was she? Well, she was in her bed, but something happened. And I turned and looked, and that room had no roof and no front wall. And I'm looking at the street, and I went, oh, okay, let's walk in there and try to find her. And so the room was just a debris pile. So I looked to where her bed was, and it just was under several feet of everything, whatever you could, the 2x4s and drywall and insulation. And the only thing we're seeing is based on the lightning still, but there was so much, it was giving us some clue. So I just dug down to the bottom of the pile, which probably was close to chest high or high, a little bit higher. And down, there's no kid. I'm thinking she got knocked from her bed, and I probably just passed her somewhere along the way when I came up.
Right.
I'm thinking she got knocked, literally.
Into the front yard or something.
Yeah, or deeper into the house where the tree came. And so then finally at the very bottom, I could feel, an arm and a leg. And I just remember this clock kind of started in my head. Okay, now you have this new thing. And so I just remembered thinking this odd awareness of time. So I pulled her out and I said, I got her. And there's my wife and other daughter just standing there, just watching, but because who knew what was going on? So I held Lainey up and the lightning would flash, and she was as limp, and there was nothing there, just a kid being held up, 2 years old. And so we're screaming her name, Lainey, wake up. Nothing, not anything, no movement, no recognition, not a twitch. And then that clock became real prominent in my head. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. And about the 10 or 15 second mark, everything caught up with my brain, and my heart started just racing because I thought, this is a bad situation. This is not just a storm damage situation. This kid is deceased. This is more real than anything. And so and I remember thinking, how do I wake this kid up? And what's the first inclination there? Just shake her awake. And my brain in that slow motion kind of thing was, you can't shake kids, it'll mess them up.
Sure.
So don't shake her. And I blew in her face and pinched her cheek or something. I did something different, and her cheek twitched on her own. And I just looked at my wife and said, she's alive. We're now in as much danger as any time the whole thing's been going on, because there's no roof above us. This cloud to ground lightning's everywhere. This kid's still alive. Now we have to get down into the basement and reassess. So I said, but stay to the left and hug the wall as we go around, because don't worry about what you see, because I knew I just came from it. So we made it to the basement, and we just literally, it's so dark, feeling body parts, everything seemed connected on all four of us. And we had two dogs, two Weimaraners, so not the smallest dogs, and they were easy. And they showed up, so somehow 6 of us in the basement, and no one seems to be disfigured or dismembered. And I said, stay here, I'm going to go try to call, for help, because we've got some kind of problem here. I don't really know what it is. So I go to the back of my basement, facing the backyard, and I'm by the washer and dryer, and I start to dial, and I see this white light zigzagging through the blinds, another odd thing. So I just open the blinds, and there's my neighbor. Shorts, shoes, I don't even know if he had shoes, no shirt, guy's like 65 years old, awesome dude, and used to be a firefighter, and he's standing there with a flashlight looking directly at me. His eyes got real wide. I think he was surprised that he saw a human vertically, So I just waved him down, and he came in, and I opened the door, and he said, "Is everyone okay?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay, good. You need to get out of here. There's a major problem." And I said, "Well, yeah, you're telling me." And so I got everyone, and we ran. We had to run through the yards to his house, and we went into his house. And really, in hindsight, the most dangerous part of the whole thing was running through, because the limbs and trees, everything was falling around us while the storm was going on. It probably went on for another 30 minutes to an hour. I mean, it just kept going. And here we were in his house. I was super, then everything caught up to me. I was tweaked by the whole thing, because I knew I had just had a tree land next to me. And then the thing with our daughter, and they were like, "What's wrong? Why are you pacing?" And a few beers were consumed as help in the moment. And so, long story short, the next morning, 8 o'clock or 7 finally rolled around, and the sun came up, and I said, "You ready to go see what this is all about?" And when we all emerged and went to the front, everyone was in disbelief at what they were looking at, which was just this mangled house where no one was even scratched somehow. And I had known it really was a problem. Except that it ultimately has led directly to this conversation in DMV Weather and an app and a website, because from that point, it really messed me up. I mean, I think I had some legit PTSD when the wind would blow after that.
Without a doubt.
I could not deal with it. I would pull off the road or hunker down. It took a while. It doesn't happen. It's gone now, right? If the wind blows, I'm back to,
I'm good.
Yeah, let's get into the middle of that storm. So that terrible event led directly to something positive, and I just took it as, hey, I'm going to... I could have forecasted that for the local community and warned neighbors. It was almost a Paul Revere kind of weird moment in my head. Like, hey, the storms are coming. And so I then launched, I started posting on, I live in Cape St. Clair. Hey, this storm's coming. And people, I think, were a little weirded out at first. Like, who is this guy? And then they saw that it was accurate, and then they understood a little about my background, and they knew I was the guy from the house. And so then...
So you're like, oh, he's that guy.
Well, yeah, kind of, right? And I just kept doing it, and it was a way for me it was therapy for me. It was just a coping mechanism. And so then I created a Facebook page, DMV, CSC Weather at the time, and now has become DMV Weather. So all of those little things that you have no clue that are even coming or whatever, and it all pushed me back 25 years later to this path that I was on very clearly as a teenager to become a meteorologist. And so I am not technically a meteorologist. I have a minor, but I can forecast, and it's accurate. And now we're about to, within the next week or two, officially launch our first internship program with actual aspiring meteorologists from UNC Asheville. So you will start to see more content and hear different voices, maybe on the podcast, ultimately, as these people get ramped up. So I have 5 people that are coming on board. DMV Weather will be actually a bit of a team. And then from there, we'll continue to build it out and turn this thing into a more of a full-fledged weather forecasting service that hopefully continues to compete and innovate with TV stations and local forecasting services.
Well, one of the things that you want to do is and I don't want to say compete, because I mean it's 2 different types of things. I mean, in the basic sense, you're forecasting weather, but to compete with others, you pride yourself on your accuracy.
Yeah.
sometimes you see, meteorologists on TV, they're backtracking and this and that and whatnot. One thing that you had said to me way back in September when we first met was that, it doesn't matter whether you're the fancy meteorologist with all the degrees on ABC in New York or Fox News or whatever the heck it is, or the guy that's living in grandmom's basement, as long as you're accurate and you can back it up.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. So, and we've done that, right? And so that part of the equation has been kind of proven out. Yeah, so we will try to kind of reinvent and redefine how this industry operates, which is we want the standard to be that everyone posts their forecasts and then has them measured objectively against actual measurements, and that there's a public-facing accuracy rating for all forecasters, just like there would be for anything, right? For Wall Street, they present numbers for corporations.
Sure.
This is how they performed. And in most jobs, there's, hey, your review, right? This is how you did. In sales, hey, you met your number or you didn't. It's objective.
Well, that's the old joke. It's like, gosh, I want to be a meteorologist when I grow up because I can be wrong most of the time and still get paid.
Very much, right? And that is totally understandable because there's no objective measurement system in place. There's no performance rating, right? And so the end game here is through the entity that really is the company that DMV Weather is a division of something called Weather Informant. So two separate things. One's forecasting. Weather Informant is going to be geared toward capturing forecasters' actual forecasts for high and low temps, for snowfall. There's only so many things you can, and people only care about really so many things that who cares if it was 18 or 21 mile per hour winds? I mean, it's indiscernible to the person. But if it was 2 inches or 7 inches of snow, God forbid, that needs to be shown. So that's our end game here. Is we'll always have the forecasting side, but we want to create this system where it's public-facing, objective performance ratings, so that you or I or anyone else can tune in or just look at a website or receive some post, and it shows, hey, Marty Bass in Baltimore is most accurate when it comes to high temperatures, but Top or Shut is best with snowfall, or DMV Weather nails every derecho 4 days out. And so there's a lot of different things you can measure. Lead time is an important one. So we want to be able to say, hey, these guys are great for high temperatures, but they give 3 hours of lead time. It's like almost forecasting in real time. Versus these guys are just behind them, but they tell you 18 hours in advance that it's going to be this temperature, and it plays out that way. So there's going to be a lot of innovation, and almost in a bit of a fantasy sports, statistical fantasy kind of way. Like, we just want to use statistics just like in real sports now. Hey, with a 2-0 count on a Tuesday night when it's cloudy and the breeze is from the west, the Orioles hit 300. It gets a little crazy sometimes, but there's not enough of it right now in the industry. And so that is our end game. It's going to require a lot of hard work this year to build an interface that's web-based, where people, it's easy to build a simple one. We want to build it a little more responsive. So
that's able to do it. Well, you're continuing to grow. DMV, and I'm somewhat of a transplant to Maryland, and DMV to me still is Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. So
DMV defined is and we didn't make it up.
Or the Delmarva Peninsula.
Yeah, right.
But it's D.C., Maryland,
which is really central Maryland, and northern Virginia, right? And so we don't do the three counties that are kind of way to the east, which is, and we'll add in beach forecasts and stuff, but we don't forecast on a daily basis for whatever those counties are.
Wicomico, and
no one ever remembers. And then to the west, from really like
Allegheny
just west of Frederick, right? So once you get to Washington, and then Cumberland and western Maryland. So we're not doing the east and west, but it's everything else from Fredericksburg, Virginia. That's the bottom of the zone, all the way to the Maryland, Pennsylvania line, right? And so Annapolis, Baltimore, Dulles, and D.C., we use those four because they have National Weather Service measuring stations. There are others. We'll probably start to add on a daily basis forecasting for Frederick and Bel Air, and just filling in more areas.
You've also connected with the Alexandria Citizen, which is a website not too dissimilar from Ion Annapolis, down in Alexandria, just outside of D.C. And Lee Hernley, I've met him a couple different times, and you're now doing forecasting for the Alexandria Citizen.
That's it. So we started with Eye on Annapolis as part of our strategy in 2017. Let's connect with just a few online media sources and kind of perfect our craft. And yours was a great opportunity because
you were that irritating Twitter guy.
It was daily. Yeah, that's right. It was daily forecasting with you, and also the ability to do a 5-day-a-week podcast. So that's great. And so we added the same thing with Alexandria Citizen. That's a weekly podcast. And so now the big push for 2018 is to have one in each of our 4 kind of core cities. So Annapolis, Baltimore, DC. So Alexandria kind of fits the bill for DC. Sure. So we really want one for Northern Virginia and Baltimore. So I met with someone last night actually for the Baltimore one. Hopefully that plays out. I won't talk about it until it does to jinx it. But so really, we want a presence in every major market, and then maybe we'll then start to add additional outlets within each market. But I like the fact that it's our relationship in Annapolis, and that's it. There's no real competition or dilution. It's just been a good thing. So the idea is to grow through different partnerships.
Well, I do that too personally, and I'll speak from my end. Annapolis is that we're all about local, whether it's local news, local weather, local events, and whatnot. I believe in supporting local businesses as opposed to, some large conglomerates and everything else. And because Annapolis is so unique in terms of forecasting, it was really a natural fit to sit there and say, okay, hey, George, are you willing to do this for us? You live in Annapolis. You're not, you're right here across the table from me in Annapolis. We're at the Commons on West Street. So it's not, like you're just some guy up in Penn State behind a whole bunch of computers. You're here. And your story on the derecho, whatever, is just phenomenal. I was sitting here with my mouth wide going like, okay. And I was tempted to interrupt you in the middle of going, okay, spoiler. It ends good. Yeah. We couldn't find my kid. There was a tree on top of her bed. It was like, oh my God. But I want to thank you for, certainly for forecasting. And you can learn more about George at your website, dmvweather.com. You can subscribe. You can pick up the app at DEMDVA Weather. Yep. On the Google Play or the Apple App Store. Yeah. And certainly you can hear him weekly on the Alexandria Citizen podcast, and you can hear him daily at 7 a.m. on the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief. And we missed one day, I think.
I think there was one day, but yeah.
I think you missed one day, and another day I put the wrong one in. I get a call from George going, hey, what the hell were you thinking?
And remember, the upside was the forecast was almost the same thing. So right. It was still accurate.
It wasn't too bad. But no, we do coordinate this. We're always in touch. If weather is iffy, George will call me up and say, hey, I need to wait until the very last minute. And so what you're getting is very accurate for the Annapolis area. It's very up to date and it's very current. So unless I screw it up, but then then that's on me, not on. That doesn't count against your accuracy when I screw it up. But George Young, thank you very much for coming in. It's been a pleasure to talk to you and learn more about it. And wow, that derecho story was unbelievable, intense.
Hey, one more note on that note is derechos around here on average, they actually do hit every 4 to 5 years, not of that size and strength, but so the parting shot here is we're due for one this year, so stay tuned.
We were due for 20 inches of snow too.
True. Thank you, John.
And that was George Young with DMV Weather. And you can catch him every Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. on the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief. How was that for a good segue and a plug?
During the break there, I was telling him how much I liked it, and I hate complimenting you. So it is actually really good. I listen to it every morning.
Yeah, George is really good with the accuracy. He knows the area. It's specific to Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. And, well, I think we talked about it, but you remember a couple years ago when the water taxi in Baltimore capsized. Oh, yeah. Because that storm came out of nowhere.
That was a long time ago. That was probably...
It was 3 or 4 years ago.
I thought it was much longer than that. But I guess
the Seabees went out and rescued them and everything else. So it's just a very unique area to forecast, and he does a very good job. And I'll tell you, that story of the derecho,
that's incredible.
I can't think of a more...
That was the worst storm I ever saw here, including hurricanes. I've never seen a storm as bad as that derecho.
I agree.
Was. That was what? That was like
That's
June 30th.
Derecho or derecho? Derecho.
It was June 30th, 2012. I remember because I just started consulting and the power went out for 6 days. So we stayed at a friend's house over in Chesapeake Harbor because she had this great apartment. And I slammed my foot and broke my toe against her bed. That's how I remember it. I had to call a tow truck.
I'll tell you, the panic that sets in when you lose your kid in a department store.
Yeah.
And the panic that sets in, like if you lose your kid in Disney, like some of us may have done. I can't imagine in a total dark house in the middle of a derecho, knowing that your child is in a bedroom where a tree had just fallen through the roof. And, to find her there, to get her out and safely, is just,
wow. People forget what that was like. It was like a hurricane combined with a tornado. I have never seen, and it didn't last that long, but I've never seen a storm that intense here.
Well, I thought it was fascinating what he told me. It was that they're easily predicted, and they knew it was...
Well, that one came out of nowhere.
He said, no, it didn't. He said it was, you could see...
They kept it quiet.
You could see it, but nobody wanted to call it. And the intensity is what's difficult to predict. But the way it was lined up over in the Midwest, you could see that it was just coming there.
That line.
The whole question is whether it's going to come across the mountains. What are the mountains? Appalachians? Yeah.
Yeah.
Appalachian Mountains. Yeah. And break out or not.
You see, all our weather comes from the Tennessee Valley. So ours comes from, Kentucky, Tennessee, into Virginia, up this way.
Right, and shoots up.
Yeah, whereas if you're in kind of north, like if you're in Pennsylvania, a little bit west of Philly, all that comes from like the Great Lakes.
Right.
So they kind of collide over Jersey.
That's the proverbial lake effect.
It is a lake effect, yeah. We don't get that here. All our stuff comes from the Tennessee River Valley, and that comes up this way, so you can see when it's coming. Now, I remember it was probably 1998, I think. Yeah, it was 98, I think, or 99, and there was that storm that came out of nowhere. Remember that? There was a snowstorm that was that line that stretched from like Georgia all the way up to Maine, and it just followed kind of parallel to the Appalachian Mountains, and it was that band, because I remember they talked about flurries at 8 o'clock, and at 10 p.m. Fox News in D.C. led off with Sue Palka. Right? Is she still in the air?
Yeah.
But it was Sue Palka. She came on. She goes, all right, this is a big one, people. We didn't see this coming. And let me tell you why we didn't see it coming, because it was just this narrow band that was like 50 miles wide, and it went up. And
just parked right.
And yeah, we got like 2 or 3 feet of snow, something like overnight.
Right.
That was incredible. So, I mean, these crazy things can happen.
Right. Well, if you need a decent weather app, download the DMV Weather app.
I'd have it because it's very local.
Definitely check him out on the Annapolis Daily News Brief. You can check out his website there at dmvweather.com. And he'll give George a listen. He's got good information. He's not always 100%, but none of the meteorologists are.
And you listen to him every morning when you listen to the Annapolis Daily Briefing on Alexa. I can't say it loud because your Alexa will start talking.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it'll start talking.
It's obnoxious, but I listen every morning.
That machine that's manufactured by Amazon.
Right.
Where you say, hello, first name.
Alexa.
But yeah, and if you are still interested in jumping in on the Gavin tax conversation, still send us an email.
Yeah, info@themarylandcrabs.com, or you can find us on Facebook. We have a group and we have a page, The Maryland Crabs, and you can send us a message there or post something there. You can find us on Twitter @MDCrabsPodcast. You can subscribe to us at Google Play and Apple Podcasts, and you want to rate us, and you want to review us, and you want to do all those things. You want to make sure
we
should do a contest of some sort.
Yeah, let's do a contest.
Yeah, first prize would be lunch with John.
All right.
Second prize would be 2 lunches with John.
All right, here's the deal. First 5 people that put first 5 people that put reviews up on Apple Podcasts, which is iTunes.
Right.
And in your review, put the word, what's the code word?
Elephant.
Yeah. Work elephant into your review somehow. And then send us an email in case we can't figure out how to get a hold of you. I've got Galway Bay, Killarney House.
Oh, you got real prizes.
I've got Union Jacks.
And actually, we're not even play acting here. We
Brian Baru
decide on this ahead of time.
Else. So I've got first 5 people. I'll get you a $25 gift certificate to a cool restaurant local here.
But you got to work the word elephant. You got to work the word elephant into the review somehow. And if one person uses the word elephant in the room and someone else uses it after that, you're disqualified. They got to be different uses of the word elephant. What's so hard about that? Yeah. What, you want 5 people saying something about the elephant in the room?
I don't care what they say. I just want the reviews.
Yeah,
just put the review. 5 stars, elephant. That'll work. I got the gift cards.
Alexa.
Possession is 9/10.
Okay.
Math is not your strong suit.
Wrong. I am good at math for 70% of the time and great at math the other 40%.
That's right. That's right. All right. Say goodnight, Gracie.
Shut up.
This has been the Maryland Crabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them at all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.